This is the Big Stories Podcast, where we tell the amazing and inspiring stories from across the Big 12 Conference.
Welcome back to the Big Stories Podcast. We're not wasting any time. Let's dive into the top 5 teams of the week with producer Chase Davidson. We're going to do this a bit differently this week. If you choose a team, the other person has to adjust and pick a new team at that pick. So if Chase picks Oklahoma State at number 5, I cannot pick them at number 5. I have to pick a new team. If you pick them at a different spot, we should be okay. So we're gonna give this a try, Chase, and we're gonna see how things go. I will admit I did see a few of Chase's picks today, but I don't remember them. Chase has not heard any of my picks. So Chase will go first. He'll do number 5. I'll do number 4. He'll do number 3. I'll do number 2. He'll do number 1, and we'll go there. So number 5, Chase, who was your number 5 team in the Big 12 this past week? And hopefully I can get through this because it sounds like I'm dying right now.
Okay, so stay with me now. At number 5, I have Kansas State. Kansas State, they played their hearts out and lost a nail-biter to Baylor, 35-34. I was actually originally going to highlight Baylor here, but I wanted to give Kansas State credit. Anyone who watched Kansas State's last 3 games can see that there has been a change in feel of overall in that locker room, in that team, from that nightmare of the first 3 or 4 games. The Wildcats they outplayed Baylor this week. At one point in the fourth quarter, K-State was being given a 98.9% chance to win. They were up by 2 scores and had the ball, but a Baylor 66-yard pick six, Avery Johnson threw that pass, completely flipped the tides of this game. But I feel like I need to give credit to K-State because they are not the same as Oklahoma State right now. They are in a different place, and I think Big 12 championship is completely out of the books now. But this team maybe could bounce around and get a bowl game. I don't know what their upcoming schedule, but I think Kansas State has kind of figured things out. They lost, but I really want to give credit to Kansas State.
All right, my number 5 is TCU. They seem like the perfect fit right here. They lost to ASU the week before after securing a double-digit lead. They were down early to the Buffaloes. They played CU in Fort Worth. They were down 14-0, but then Josh Hoover did Josh Hoover things and leads his team to a 35-21 victory. It helped that CU fumbled a punt that led to the game-winning TD, and the Horned Frogs tacked on a TD at the end to make it a 14-point advantage. Good win since they were down by 14, but they should have beaten CU, so I'll put them at number 5. All right, at number 4 is Kansas. The Jayhawks were coming off a loss to Cincinnati at home. The game at UCF was only the second time Kansas had left the Sunflower State. They're down 14-0 to UCF in the second quarter and then 20-14 at the half, but they shut out the Knights in the second half for a 27-20 win. It helped that Knights QB Taven Jackson left the game with an injury, I should say. Jayhawks stopped the Knights 3 times from the 1-yard line with less than 2 minutes left in this game. So that's why I have the Jayhawks at number 4. Your number 4 team.
My number 4 is TCU. And it wasn't until the fourth quarter in this game against Colorado where TCU really kicked that high-powered offense into gear, putting up 21 points. It wasn't exactly the same 21 points you might see in another game, but Josh Hoover still very underrated on a national scale. This guy can really throw the rock. I'm still very concerned about that TCU defense. They are letting up a lot of yards per game, and I think it is going to come up to bite them. It did in the Arizona State game. I'm still very worried about that. However, they pulled off a solid win over Colorado this week.
All right, who is your number 3?
My number 3 is Kansas, as you had at your number 4.
Okay.
Jalen Daniels threw for 235, doing his thing, and Kansas completely shut out UCF in the second half. Don't have much more to add that you didn't already say, but good win for Kansas.
My number 3 team is Baylor, who, I don't know, we'll see if you left them off or not, but my number 3 team is Baylor. This is a team that could have hung their head after Kansas State took a 31-17 lead in the third quarter. They could have hung their head after K-State kicked a field goal with 1:40 left in the game to put them down 34-32, but they fought their way back for Connor Hawkins to nail a 53-yard field goal to win the game. They also blocked Kansas State's 56-yard attempt with 2 seconds left. Man, Kansas State was that close. That close. I watched the end of that game. It was a lot of fun. So Baylor, my number 3 team for this week. My number 2 team this week is Cincinnati. I thought they would lose this week at home to Iowa State, but they take a commanding 31-7 lead and then hold on to beat the Cyclones 38-30. That's 2 quality wins in 2 weeks. Bearcats looked explosive on offense in the game against Iowa State. They had the biggest win of the week, but they were also home and surprised Iowa State. I don't think they're going to surprise any teams the rest of the way. That's why I have them at number 2. Your number 2.
Number 2, I got the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Many had them, including me, on some upset watch this week against a 4-0 Houston team on the road. Texas Tech did what they have done all season, which is demoralizing their opponents. They put Houston in a chokehold that they were completely helpless to break out of. 35-11 final score. I don't think Houston scored in the second half there. Texas Tech is looking really sharp.
I don't think we're going to have any overlap this week, but it may happen in the future. Okay, so your number 1 team is?
Cincinnati, and okay. you might have expected this one. They were favored in this game, surprisingly. I talked about this last week.
That's really interesting.
Yes.
I really thought Iowa State would be the better team. I know Iowa State struggled at times, but it's like they know what they're doing. Iowa State's a good team. They can go on the road. They can pull out a close win, but they weren't even in this game early.
Right, and that's what's so strange is that Vegas knew something that a lot of people did not. Cincinnati really took it off from the very start, like you said. They went out to a 31-7 lead, and before you say, oh, well, Iowa State must have fumbled the ball inside the 10, muffed a kick, giving them all those points. Nope. Cincinnati put together 5 55-plus yard drives, and 4 of those 5 were like 75-plus yard drives to build up that lead. They thoroughly dominated Iowa State. They did have a valiant comeback effort from the Cyclones, but a gutsy 82-yard pass by Cincinnati. Brendan Sorsby in the fourth quarter really put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that was a nice win by Cincinnati. So I decided to put Texas Tech at number 1. I was not going to dethrone who I consider the best team in the Big 12 right now. You're right. They struggled early. Offense didn't look good. They kicked 3 field goals to start the game, but the defense was awesome. They then scored 24 points to beat Houston 35-11. By the way, sad news. Cougs sell out their stadium. They think maybe we can upset this team, but their offense was terrible, and a lot of that has to go to the fact that Texas Tech is that good. Texas Tech only gave up 1 touchdown in this game, and that was a 64-yard pass to their backup quarterback. So, yeah, Texas Tech is just really good right now. It will be interesting to see how good they are going forward. But this week, they are my number 1 team. Thanks, Chase, for joining me for the top 5 teams in the Big 12 this week. It's time for this week's biggest storylines in the Big 12.
Number 5.
Poor Oklahoma State. Cowboys lost at Arizona 41-13 and only put up 158 yards of total offense in the loss. Now they get ready to host Houston this week. So I wanted to invite Locked On Oklahoma State podcast host Cody Stovall to talk about when the Cowboys could win a conference game. Cody Stovall, before we get to the big question for you, I need to ask you, is there anything positive that you can take away from that loss at the University of Arizona?
I think just the amount of players that haven't really got to play a lot this year, seeing the field and having some success, primarily somebody like LaDainian Fields, who hasn't had the opportunity to play all season. He takes back the pick 6, which is the only score for the Cowboys offensively throughout the course of the day. Seeing a lot of those guys like the Armstrong Nodems and the LaDainian Fields that truly believe in the Cowboy culture and they care more about the name on the front of the chest than the back. Seeing some of those guys get out there and make some plays was very encouraging.
Now, OSU hosts Houston this week, but my overall question to you is, when will Oklahoma State win a conference game? I'm not trying to be a downer, but it's not looking good when you look at the schedule. After this week, you host Cincinnati, then you're at Texas Tech, at Kansas, home to Kansas State, at UCF, and home to Iowa State in the last game of the season. Which game or games can the Cowboys potentially get before the end of this season?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I thought Arizona was potentially a game where we could, find them susceptible to a loss. Obviously, that did not happen. When you look at the rest of the schedule, the only other team that seems like somebody that's in the same classification as us right now, aka driving the struggle bus, is Kansas State. So Oklahoma State versus Kansas State, that might be the toilet bowl of the season in the Big 12, and it might be our best opportunity to go steal a W.
The Cowboys have had a tough time on offense. This past week, as you mentioned, the only touchdown was a pick 6. So what is the Cowboys' offensive identity right now?
I think driving the struggle bus is the offensive identity at the moment. And, it's kind of perplexing because we actually showed some semblance of an adequate offensive performance against Baylor. We added some wrinkles with a slot receiver that used to be a D1 quarterback at Cal and TCU and Sam Jackson. We saw a little bit of that the Arizona game, but it was primarily after Zane Flores went out with a little bit of an injury. So the offensive creativity was not there until the fourth quarter. Which, again, it's very confusing. It's perplexing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And sadly, if Doug Meacham is auditioning to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State, he didn't help himself at all with the Arizona performance because we were completely inept the entire game offensively.
Number 4.
I'm going to be honest, I did not see the Cincinnati victory over Iowa State coming. Cyclones were down 31-7 in the second quarter, but then they fought their way back to 31-22 before giving up an 82-yard TD pass in the fourth quarter. Now they can... They did it against the Bearcats, even though they didn't get the victory. You would think they'd be able to do it handily against a Colorado team that can't hold on to early leads, but sometimes the letdown is real. You lose a heartbreaking game one week and it carries over to the next week. I'm interested to see if one of the Big 12's preseason favorites can... Okay, I had to put the bounce back soundbite in one more time. I think the Cyclones sweep in and out of CU with a victory, but I want to see how they do it.
Number 3.
Texas Tech's defense was legit in their 35-11 win at Houston. Before Houston QB Connor Wegman left with an injury in the second quarter, the Cougars fumbled the ball away, punted it, hit a field goal, threw an interception, punted, and turned the ball over on downs. Not a good night. By the way, I think I got all of that right. Now the Red Raiders get ready to host Kansas, who had their own... I can't stop playing it now. We get Kansas's biggest storylines from Mark Van Sickle of the Jayhawker Talker podcast of the Heartland College Sports Podcast Network.
The Kansas Jayhawks are coming off a nice road win at UCF. A 27-20 win gets them back in the win column in the Big 12. Now 2-1 in the Big 12 Conference. But this week, it is a tough matchup against maybe the top team in the Big 12 right now, the top-ranked team, Texas Tech, ranked number 9 overall in the nation, 2-0 in the Big 12 and 5-0 overall. But Kansas, you cannot count them out. Despite being a early 14.5-point underdog in this game against Texas Tech, you cannot count the Kansas Jayhawks out. If you look at what they've done this year so far, offensively, they can keep up with anybody. Yes, Texas Tech has one of the best defenses in the country, but Kansas can keep up offensively with anyone. Jalen Daniels, their starting quarterback, he is a veteran. He's been around college football for a long time, and he leads this Kansas offense. He makes them go with his legs, with his arm. He can do whatever you need him to do to get the job done. And their Big 12 conference loss to Cincinnati, it was not on the Kansas offense. Kansas scored a touchdown with less than a couple of minutes left in the game. Should have got them the win, but their defense, that is the thing that could trip up the Kansas Jayhawks here. The defense has not been very good this year. However, coming off that win against UCF, they had a big defensive stop at the end of the game. Could give them some momentum going into this game against Texas Tech. But it's going to come down to Jalen Daniels, 16 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, what he can do in the passing game, what he can do to keep the drives extended with his legs. And the Kansas Jayhawks, while you don't think that they'll have a chance on the road at Texas Tech, I wouldn't count them out just yet. Give the Jayhawks a chance in this one against Texas Tech and definitely to cover the 14.5-point spread.
Number 2.
Are you for real? That's my question for BYU, Arizona, and TCU. I was going to include Cincinnati, but I think they've proven they can win at a high level in the Big 12 with victories at Kansas and at home over Iowa State. First up, BYU. They are the 18th ranked team in the nation, and their best win was either at Colorado, who's 2-4 on the season, or at East Carolina, which is a solid Group of 5 team. I need to see if they are for real against a team who is also trying to prove they are for real in the Arizona Wildcats. The Cats' only loss was at 14th ranked Iowa State. No shame in that. They've won the rest of their games handily, with a 6-point win against Kansas State as their best victory. Both teams want to prove they're for real in the Big 12, especially BYU, since their schedule gets way tougher after this week. As for TCU, they were down 14-0 against CU before coming back to win 35-21. They lost their only other conference game 27-24 at Arizona State. I think the Horned Frogs want to prove they are the real deal, but to do that, they need to win at a somewhat resurgent Kansas State. Sure, they lost at Baylor, but it was just by 1. This could be the game the Cats show they are a royal purple pain in the sight of the rest of the conference.
Number 1.
The big game of the week is the last game on Saturday.
Arizona State rises to number 21 in the AP Top 25 and now heads on the road to Rice-Eccles Stadium to take on Kyle Whittingham and Utah. A couple key things to watch. It's Erik Ruby from PHNX. Sun Devils, of course, you always got to start at the top, and that is with your quarterback, Sam Leavitt. Leavitt had a good bounce back on the road against Baylor after struggling against Mississippi State on the road, but there is no environment like a Utah night game, so we're going to need him to step up big time on the road and especially deliver to Jordan Tyson, of course, one of the best wide receivers in college football, but also the rest of the wide receiving core. And the number 2 thing that I am absolutely watching for Utah ASU is, can that offensive line, specifically the interior offensive line, protect Sam Leavitt, keep him on schedule, allow him to make reads in pockets against Utah's destructive defensive line. It's going to be absolutely critical that the offensive line plays their best game of the season. We've seen some movement around on the interior of the offensive line. Can they figure out the right combination to make sure that Utah defensive line is shut down and absolutely cannot get to Sam Leavitt, who can absolutely make magic happen and roll out of the pocket. In fact, his legs are probably his best weapon, but you don't want him to have to use it all the time, especially when you are struggling to get in a rhythm on offense on the road against really good, raucous teams. On the defensive side of things, can that secondary hold up, especially because it's gone through some injuries? Will Xavier Alford play is something to be watching throughout this week as we wait from injury updates from Kenny Dillingham. It's number 21, ASU on the road against Utah, looking to continue their Big 12 streak and remain undefeated in the conference this year by picking up a big road win.
Thank you very much, Erik. Now let's talk to Alex Markham from the Ute Nation podcast about the biggest storylines from the Ute side of things. Alex Markham, for me, the biggest storyline coming into this game is the late night spotlight is back in Salt Lake City. It's ESPN's main game late at night. You got the previous year's champs coming into town. One team is ranked. The other team could be ranked with a win. It's not schematic specific. I know what my storyline is, but when one of the big networks realizes the potential of this game and they want to put it on TV, I think that's a huge storyline. What's your biggest storyline coming into this game?
You know, it's ASU. They're the defending champs, right? And so when it comes down to it, you know, Utah has been in that position the last, off and on the last few years. They know how to handle those things. So they're going to be able to know what they need to do to be able to come after Arizona State and see if Arizona State's ready for it, right? So really, it's gonna be a battle of, can Utah's offense keep up with Arizona State's offense? And so, Utah's got those elements, but they just haven't been able to hit the deep balls yet. And so that's going to be the one big thing. If Utah can hit those deep balls, if they can keep up with them that way, it's going to be a fun game, and it's going to be must-see TV for everybody in the old Pac-12 after dark slot, right? I know, everybody wants to give Utah fans grief about talking about the Pac-12 and everything, but this is the Pac-12 after dark is nostalgic, right? And it was a fun time for so many Pac-12 teams, and just the fact that these two get to be on this platform and have that time slot. It's gonna be fun for the fans.
Utah scored on every possession but one in the game against West Virginia. Some scoring drives were long, some were short. I know that's not going to happen every single week, but did the offense just need that after what happened against Texas Tech?
They needed it bad. They're little things that, they were still hoping to see worked on and everything. They're also just the fact of Dampier not being healthy the week before and wanting to see him at least close to it, So being able to see him make that stride and then going into the bye week and having that extra time to be able to get healthy was huge. But, Utah saw a few more chunk plays this time around. That was important. If you ask me, I still don't believe in our podcast, me, Zach Moss, Cal Beck, we don't believe that Dampier has still shown the ability to throw a solid deep ball yet. And so that's still a concern.
Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson are one of the best QB wide receiver tandems in the Big 12. Raleek Brown, he's no Cam Scattaboo, but he has rushed for over 100 yards in 3 games, including 134 against TCU. I know they're having problems scoring in the red zone, but the Sun Devils could really pose a challenge for this Ute football team in Salt Lake City. Your thoughts on that?
You're right. They really can. And, Utah doesn't know what's going to, they know, but not everybody fully knows and has the confidence in what's going to be going on in Utah's safety room now, with Nate Ritchie being out and for the foreseeable future and Rabbit Evans being out for the year. So there's plenty of questions there that, they can take advantage of. And, in Morgan Scali's defense, he knows that teams are going to hit the big play. It's about, how can you minimize it? It's like, okay, it's going to happen. It just happened. How do you minimize it? Right. And so those plays are going to happen. It's going to be how can they minimize it? And from there, I will flat out say, like, my concern, I'm more concerned with Utah going up against somebody like a Raleek Brown than I am with Scattaboo. Okay. If you go back and you watch the tape with Utah's game last year with Scattaboo, he's a stud. Like, I will give him all his flowers, I guess that's the term everybody wants to say nowadays, right? But if you go back and you watch the tape, there were some key dumb missed tackles at the line of scrimmage that Utah had, or within the first 3 yards after the line of scrimmage, and he's popping off. That's when he popped off at least one of his big runs, right? And so Raleek Brown is the type of back that scares me a lot more than somebody like a Cam Scattaboo. When it comes to Utah's defense, can Utah win it? Yeah. And I'm going to predict Utah when it comes down to it, because Rice Eccles is it's a different atmosphere. It's a different animal at night. When it comes down to those games, Big 12 hasn't fully seen that yet, just because they were so injured last year.
Alex Markham of the Ute Nation podcast, thanks a lot for joining us. Go check out his stuff at the Ute Nation podcast. He's got some great stuff on there. Alex, again, thank you, and good luck to the Utes this weekend.
Appreciate it, Cleon. Thank you.
Let's now talk about the top 5 quarterbacks in the Big 12. Number 5, Texas Tech's Baron Morton, 28 of 40, 345 yards and 1 TD. It's pretty sad when you have a pedestrian game, very much air quotes intended there, a pedestrian game with 345 yards. Number 4, BYU's Bear Bachmeier, 18 of 25, 351 yards, 1 TD and 1 interception. Some gorgeous passes to Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, also 12 rushes for 43 yards and a TD. Number 3, Baylor's Sawyer Robertson, 25 of 39, 345 yards, 2 TDs, and 1 interception in his game. Number 2, Cincinnati's Brendan Sorsby, 13 of 25, 214 yards, 2 TDs. By the way, the last TD to Caleb Goody was a beauty, 82 yards on that one. He also had 9 rushes for 64 yards and a TD. The one that made it 31-7 looked like he wanted to hand it off on an RPO. Didn't. Ran it in for a TD untouched. And number 1 from this past week, Arizona's Noah Fifita, 28 for 38 for 376 yards, 5 TDs, and 1 interception. His third TD pass to Luke Winsong, it was for 47 yards, but Fifita danced around and avoided a few opportunities to get sacked, to fling it down the field. He did have 1 fumble near the goal line that didn't look great, but we're still going to award him the number 1 slot. Honorable mention, K-State's Avery Johnson, 29 of 45, 339 yards, 2 TDs, but his 1 interception was killer. All right, let's award our big man on campus. I could have given it to BYU wide receiver Chase Roberts, 4 catches for 161 yards, including an 85-yarder. Didn't have quite enough speed to get into the end zone on that long run. Or I could have given it to Baylor kicker Connor Hawkins, 2 field goals, including the 53-yard game-winning field goal. But our winner this week is Cincy running back Evan Pryor, 10 rushes for 111 yards. 2 of those rushes were for TDs. 1 was 30 yards and 1 was 18. Check out this Thursday's Big Stories episode involving ASU Sun Devils volleyball player Kendall Whitmarsh. and how she's carrying on her family's beach volleyball legacy despite the death of her father. A big thanks to Alex Markham, Erik Ruby, Mark Van Sickle, and Cody Stovall for joining me on the program. Download and subscribe to the Big Stories Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Cleon Wall. The Big Stories Pod will return soon. Big Stories is a production of BYU Radio.